Welcome to the 5 for 2 podcast with me, your host Adele, where we say no to careers where you're trading 5 days of misery for 2 days of fun. A place we discuss all things career, confidence, and money moves. I want to motivate, teach, and empower ambitious women to achieve more, earn more, feel more confident, and enjoy the work they do. It's all about believing you can have everything you want in your career and then going and getting it. So if you're ready, let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode. It's been a minute. Listen, mum life of an under one makes me super time poor. So usually I record a couple of episodes and then release them. I haven't had a chance. So that's what the little break was. Nothing else was going on, guys. But yeah, I'm here. We are back. If you have been listening for a while, you know that I always break in the summer. So there's never any episodes like end of July and the whole of August because I break for the summer. So I'm hoping to give you some good quality episodes up until my break. But if you see me missing for a week, it's mum life. Mum life be lifing. And I just got to go with it at this point. Everything will balance out at some point. Also, I'm going back to my part-time 9 to 5 soon, guys. So I've been doing keep in touch days at my job because, I will be going back soon. I cannot believe it's almost been a year since I've been off. It doesn't feel like a year, I promise you. Anyone who's got small kids, you know how busy it is. So that year has flown by and I can't believe I'm about to have a 1-year-old and a 20-year-old. Both their birthdays are in June. Firstly, I can't believe I've got such a big age gap. But secondly, I've got a whole grown-up and a 1-year-old. It's amazing and God is good. Anyway, let's get into this episode because, as a lot of you know, I did a little series on Instagram about how I went from teaching to human resources. And so many people had questions. So many people messaged me. The post just took off. And then people started asking me, okay, tell me how to get into HR. So I decided to do a little series on that as well, which I've only just sort of got started and started to record. However, I thought this would be the perfect place to talk about how I got into HR because so many people want to know. And they want to know if it applies till now. And what I will say to you is I recently helped a teacher go into learning and development space within human resources. So yes, the steps are all still valid today. They worked for me 100 years ago and they still are working now for my clients. Because if something's good, it's just good. And if something works, it just works. I tell you that all the time. Most strategies work. It's just how you implement them and whether you stay consistent and focused. If you believe something will work, it will work. And not I believe I can make £1 million because I believe that every day. But I mean the deep down belief, the knowing. There's a difference between saying something and actually believing it. Anyway, I digress. Let's get into how I got into HR. So we all know I was in childcare for 10 years. If you don't know and you're new here, I worked in childcare for 10 years. I've worked in reception. I've worked as an after school club manager. I've worked as a nursery manager. I have worked in youth clubs. I have done a lot in the childcare space. But yes, I worked with children for 10 years straight. I actually did my work experience, when you're like 15 in year like 10 in high school, if you went to school in the UK, and then you they send you on work experience for 2 weeks. Yes, my work experience was in a nursery. And that's what changed everything for me because previous to that, I was going to be a journalist. And I still was going to be a journalist after that fact. But then slowly things started to change because I was just really good with kids. So yeah, I've done a lot of different things. But my last role before changing into human resources was a nursery manager. I was running a large nursery. We had like 104 or 110 place. I can't remember now, but I know it was over 100 place nursery. I was the first I was the deputy manager and then I stepped up and I was the acting manager. I was acting as the manager for almost a year, I think. But yeah, I became the acting manager. So I was managing the setting, managing the staff, doing all the things, working with the children. Um, when I decided I wanted to do something else and it just wasn't for me anymore. And actually, one of my colleagues, who I'd worked with previously in another nursery setting, had said to me she thought I'd be good in recruitment. Up until that point, hadn't even thought about recruitment, didn't know what that was, just knew that I was considering leaving childcare. I was thinking of going into Ofsted or becoming an assessor, working in a college, but I hadn't ever thought of fully leaving the industry. So, first thing I did was started looking into recruitment, realized human resources looked really interesting as well. And then I was like, how do I get into human resources the quickest way? Now, some people might call it lazy, other people might call it smart. I was not going back to school. I had already done school. I had already done night school where I had studied my MBA. I wasn't going back to school. So I was trying to find the fastest way out of childcare into a new industry. So for me, and what I recommend for anyone listening, is a gateway job. Get yourself a gateway job. And what's that? That sounds like you're like, a gateway to what, Adele? So for me, human resources, a gateway job, a good gateway job, is recruitment or talent acquisition. A gateway job is just a job that helps you get to that job without trying to go directly. When I was changing, I probably could have gone directly. However, I really liked the idea of recruitment because there was a lot of money to be made really, really quickly. As you know, if you've worked for recruitment in an agency, you get commission, you get bonuses. There was just a lot of money. I was in a season of wanting to earn a lot of money, especially after being in childcare where you don't earn much. And also, recruitment made an easier transition for me into human resources. After I'd done recruitment for under 2 years, I then got into HR and I was promoted really quickly. So within 2.5 years, I was already in like HR management, recruitment management, but that was because I had done the gateway job. In this current industry in 2026, I recommend a gateway job. 2026 is one of the hardest job market, if not the hardest job market I've seen. It is similar to the 2008 job market. Anyone who's my age will remember that. It was an absolute nightmare when the economy crashed and jobs just started declining. That's what we're seeing now for different reasons, things like AI, things like our economy because of what happened in 2020. Like, things have got a knock-on effect. Um, and in this economy, it is hard enough to get a job in the industry you're in. So if you are changing industry, a gateway job is a really good opportunity for you to get a job that leads you to the job you're interested in without having to stay there for years. Like, I was in my gateway job under 2 years. I could have stayed a year if I wanted, but I had done my research and I knew that 2 years recruitment experience would get me a HR job faster. A year would have got me it, but I would have had to probably interview for longer and do more. I'm always trying to find the easiest route in. I didn't want to do loads and loads of interviews. So instead of doing a year in recruitment, I did 2 years. Other roles that would have got me into human resources: talent acquisition, a PA or an executive assistant, customer services, administration, payroll assistant. All these roles are gateway roles. Any of these type of roles will help you get into a HR admin role, HR assistant role, HR coordinator, especially if you have no qualifications or experience. I should have started the episode with that. I got into HR with no qualifications, no experience. I used a gateway job. The gateway job gives you much more relatable experience. And how did I get the gateway job? No different from how I would get any other job if I was changing industry. I had to translate and connect the dots for the people interviewing me. And I will get into more of that in this episode. But gateway jobs, marketing. If you want to get into marketing, marketing has gateway jobs. Things like being an event planner, events administrator. There are different roles that have gateway, like there are gateway jobs for every industry. So it is the job in between that makes it easier for you to get the job you want. And also it's an easier job for you to get from whatever industry you're in. So for me, it was easier to get into recruitment than it was to get straight into HR from childcare. So the gateway job, really important. Next thing is I didn't go too senior. Now, this is important in the sense of I didn't want to go for a senior role. It is not impossible to leave one industry, go to another industry and get a senior job. However, I hadn't done recruitment. I wanted to get into HR and I wanted a foundation. I wanted a baseline. So I didn't go into senior. I didn't even apply to any senior roles. I applied to mid-level and trainee roles. And I know some of you are screaming like, why a trainee role? The trainee roles were paying the same money as I was on as a nursery manager or a tiny bit less. The tiny bit less wouldn't make much difference when I started getting taxed and stuff. So I looked into it. I took like, I think between a 4 and 5K pay cut. It was like a 4K pay cut to become a trainee. Remember, I went from management to trainee, so I had way less responsibility and I only lost 4K. Within 4.5 weeks of me being in recruitment, I got a pay rise. And then by the end of that year, I had made double what I'd made as a nursery manager. So yeah, that 4K pay cut for me was an amazing thing. I know my client who got into L&D, she didn't get a pay increase. Like she's earning basically what she was earning when she was a teacher. However, she gets to work remote. The job is easier because we've spoken about this before. A spreadsheet is not as important as a child's life. So it is harder to take care of children than it is to manage a spreadsheet or manage a database or a CRM. So yeah, she's in L&D now. I'm sure by now she's already looking at her pay rise because if you work with me 6 months in, you're already considering how can I get some more money. However, she got the role that she had wanted for a really long time. She didn't go in senior. Not that she couldn't have gone in senior, but she didn't because she wanted the foundations. I didn't go in senior in recruitment because I wanted to be good at it. I wanted to learn it from the bottom up. I think when you go in at senior level, or I know when you go in at senior level, the expectation is higher. They expect you to come in and hit the ground running. They are going to give you way less training because they're like, you're a manager. I need you to manage the team. I need you to teach the team. I don't care that you've come from a background where you haven't done this. It means that you're going to have to do way more research, means you're going to have to spend a lot more of your own personal time to get up to speed with that job versus if you go in at a slightly lower level. That's what it was for me because, again, you might want to call me lazy, but I don't want to have to use loads of my spare time to have to figure out what I need to do. And especially when I first made the move, I had an 18-month-old. My 20-year-old daughter was 18 months. Was she 18 months? Yes, she was. I just had to think about it. She was like 18 months, nearly 2, I think, actually, closer to 2, when I decided I wanted to change industry. Don't ask me why I decided to do it when I had a small child, but I did. And because of that, my personal time, my free time, I wasn't about to use that to get up to speed to be a manager in a new industry. So I did it my way. So you don't have to go in senior, just get in there, get some good money, and then keep working towards the next step. The thing you should always be thinking of is your next move, not the move you're currently working on, but the next move after that. How is what you're doing now going to get you to the end goal? For me, the end goal was human resources. The next thing I did, which is also super, super important, is I pulled the human resources job description and started working backwards. Now, I did also speak to people, which we will get into, but the job description, read the job description of the job that you are trying to get, whether that was recruitment for me or human resources. I read both. I then worked backwards. How does my experience in childcare connect me to HR or to recruitment? First thing I looked at was in recruitment, they deal with lots of people. I looked at my childcare career, who are all the people I deal with? Parents, Ofsted, social services, management, head office, because I worked for a big company. I'm thinking of all the people I deal with. How do I deal with them? What kind of work do I do for them? Do I do paperwork? Is it verbal communication? How does that directly connect with what I would be doing in recruitment based on the job description? Then I thought about, as far as I was concerned, because obviously I was a nursery manager, I was actually recruiting staff. So I looked at how could I use that and say, like, I recruit staff, not on the volume that you guys do, but I still have to recruit staff, match them to job descriptions. I looked at what senior experience I had that would translate into sort of recruitment experience, even if it was at trainee level. So I looked at confidentiality documents that I had to keep. In HR, you do things like referencing. There is a lot of confidential information that you get told. I looked at all the confidential information that I held on the children, all the safeguarding that I have to do on children, all the DBS checks. Same in HR, you might have to do immigration checks and things like that. So I connected the dots by working backwards from the job description. And then obviously I spoke to people. Speaking to people in the industry is vital. It's as important as researching and doing your research online. I had two people that I was lucky enough to be able to speak to. One was the person who actually said to me they thought I'd be good in recruitment. I asked her why, and we had a few conversations. And the second was actually the person who made me cry. It was a lady who I'd known who had actually supplied staff to my nursery. So she worked at an agency, she owned an agency. She'd also been in human resources. She was a director. I had a lot of respect for her. She knew her stuff. I told her I was thinking of getting into recruitment and I wanted to leave childcare. She offered to interview me. It went horribly. I said horribly. She said to me, stay in childcare, stay in teaching. You're not cut out for recruitment or human resources. I'll even help you get a better job in teaching. That's how bad the interview went. I cried after that interview because I was like, the person who I respect really highly in the industry that I'm trying to get into is telling me that I'll be rubbish. Fast forward 2 years and she was trying to headhunt me because I did get into the industry. However, that's a whole nother story. What that helped me to do by speaking to her was she told me why she didn't think I'd be good in the industry. So that forced me to go back to the drawing board and do more research and try to basically disprove what she had said to me. So she had said, these are the reasons I don't think you'd be good. I was like, let me do some more research. She's wrong. Initially, I was like, she's right. And I cried. It's okay to accept someone's opinion to start with, even if that's your knee-jerk reaction. But once you remember who you are and that one person's opinion is not the be-all and end-all, you get to go back to the drawing board. Yes, it was a gut punch for me, but I went back to the drawing board. I was like, okay, cool. This is why she said I wouldn't be good. This is why she's wrong. I did my research. I figured out the areas that she said, okay, I don't think you'd be good at this. And I was like, why does she not think I'd be good at that? It was the way I probably answered this. It was what I said. Remember, she's basing her decision on a snapshot of an interview that I did, the first interview I'd ever done in that industry. So anyone who's currently changing industry, instead of being hard on yourself, think about the circumstances. I had studied childcare for years. I had worked in the industry for 10 years. If you put me in an interview for childcare, I would have smashed it. I went for my first ever interview. Of course, I fell on my face. I'd never been there before. I tell all my clients now, your first interview is a fact-finding expedition. If you happen to get an offer, great, but that's not what the point of the first interview is. The first interview is to get information. What kind of questions are they going to ask you? How did you answer? Were you any good at the answers? Did you get stuck on any of the answers? When I look back, that was my issue. She said to me I was no good because I was poor at interview. And the reason I was poor is because it was my first interview. It was okay for me to be crap at the first interview. I had not ever worked in that industry. I had no idea what I was doing, no experience, no qualifications. It will be the same for you if you're changing industry. Stop putting so much pressure on yourself to get the first job or the second job. You've never interviewed in that industry before. I have now been in HR and recruitment longer than I was in childcare and teaching, which is the industry I'm qualified to be in. I'm qualified to be in childcare. I'm qualified to be in teaching. I'm qualified to be in youth work. That's the area I'm qualified to be in. I did that for 10 years. I have now been in HR and recruitment for 17 years, but I had to start somewhere. I was a beginner. So yeah, that first interview was absolutely rubbish, but it forced me to go and do proper research, even more research. Go and ask my friend who had worked in that industry herself. Go and ask her more questions. Then I was able to interview and see what would happen. And some of you, I need you to stop trying to be perfect first. Because a lot of you are sitting there listening to this podcast episode and you're like, right, I've got to do all these things and I've got to be perfect before I even try and book an interview. No, go and book the interview. Like I said, I was crap at that first interview and that's okay. But if I hadn't booked that interview, I wouldn't have had the information I needed to go and do further research to have better interview answers for my next interview, which meant my next 2 interviews, I got offered both. I did 2 interviews on the same day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. I would never forget. It was a full day of interview. I got offered both those jobs. Why? Because that first interview was so bad. It made me feel so sick to my stomach that I went away and researched and came back better. Yeah, I didn't fall on my face and stay there. I got my ass up and I came back better. And that's what you need to do. You need to make a decision to just go and interview. Take the action. The action is going to help you perfect whatever you did wrong. But you can't be perfect before you know. I'm going to explain. If you've never worked in an industry, if you have no qualifications, if you have no real in-depth detail about the industry apart from speaking to people, how can you perfect anything? Because what you think is perfect, you're going to now turn up and it's going to be crap. And now you're going to be upset because you spent all those months or years perfecting something for it to just be wrong when you went for the interview. The only way to get the answers that you want is to speak to people and then just take action. Fix your CV, do your best, send it out. If you send out your CV and you don't get any interviews, relook at your CV, send it out again. It is better to move quickly and fail. It is better to have progress over perfection. So it's better to send it out, fail, send it out again. I'm not saying send it out 30 times and fail. I'm saying send it out a few times. If you're not getting anything off of it, if you email the companies and they don't give you any feedback, then yeah, get someone who's in the industry, a friend or someone you know, to review your CV and say, what am I missing? Get someone like me to review your CV if you don't know anyone in the industry. Adele, what am I missing? Can you help me out? Then book the interviews. Once you book the interviews, like I said, the first couple interviews might be rubbish. That's fine. But then you can look at what questions did they ask you? What did you answer and what could have been a better answer? Here's where you can use AI to help you. Remember, help you, be your assistant, not your boss. If you've forgotten, go back and listen to the previous episode about how to use AI in your job search. But there is no perfect timing. It is just about going for it. Oh, and one last thing I want to say. You can still negotiate even when you go into a new industry. I tried to negotiate. I did negotiate. I didn't get very far, but I negotiated. I negotiated what they were trying to offer me. I negotiated 2K more. And you know what? At the time, 2K more was a big deal. Back in 2000 and whatever it was, 2K more was a big deal. I had never really negotiated. Well, I'd never negotiated in a new industry. I'd only ever negotiated in the industry I'd been in where I had loads of experience. I had zero experience and I got them to give me an extra $2,000 on top of what they were wanting to pay me because I went into it on a trainee role. And I was convincing enough that I convinced my boss to give me an extra 2K, which she did. And then 4 weeks later, she gave me another like £1,000. So remember I told you I was like 4K under? I ended up being 3K back up. So I was only 1K short. And like I said, in the first 12 months, I doubled my salary anyway. So it made no difference that I'd lost that little 4K. So I want you to remember you can negotiate. I'm not saying you're going to be able to negotiate 10, 20, 30K. No, I'm not saying you're going to be able to do that the first time you move into a new industry. No, but I am saying you can still negotiate. If you do a good interview and they offer you and they really want you, you're able to negotiate. If it's a no, it's a no. It's okay for you to ask and get a no. Like we make out like no is the end of our world. Like someone saying no means we now, I don't know, have to live outside with the spiders. The reason I said the spiders part is because that's my worst nightmare. I absolutely hate spiders. I'm terrified. Anyway, we think of worst case scenario just because someone said no. Listen, if you negotiate and they say no, they say no. If you, like, when I tell you guys, ask for extra annual leave, if they say no, they say no. If the job still sounds great on paper, if the job still sounds great on paper and in real life, because we don't just do jobs that sound good on paper. If the job looks good on paper and is good in real life, take the damn job. Like, if you negotiate and you fail, what's the problem? Feel embarrassed. Feel embarrassed for yourself for 5 minutes because it's not even embarrassment. You asked. It was a no. You can ask again. If I ask now and someone says no, but I want the job and the salary's good anyway, but I was just negotiating because I was trying my luck and I was going to take the job, I'll take the job anyway. I know that the 2K I negotiated for the job I took, I wouldn't have taken it because I had got the other offer. The other offer was actually paying way more. And this is really important. Be strategic in what you take. The other job was paying me way more. I would have been like 6K up on my salary from a nursery manager. The reason I didn't take it was there was no real progression and I felt like they weren't going to train me. The questions I asked, I was like, yeah, I'm not really going to get any training here. Whereas the trainee role, I knew I was going to get full training. I could tell from how my manager was, I was going to be able to move up quickly if I was good at my job. And I felt like it was the best move for me to get into recruitment, which, remember, the goal was to get into HR. The other role would have paid me money, but not necessarily helped me get into human resources because I feel like they wouldn't have trained me. It was a headhunting role and there wasn't enough in it that would have got me into HR. Like there wasn't a lot of admin because they had a different team. Versus in my role, when I took the trainee role, there was admin that I was going to have to do. HR requires admin. There was like a CRM that they use, which was similar to a HR CRM. See, I'd done my research, guys. Research is important. It's something I help my clients to do. Networking and research are so important to understand what it is you're stepping into. I've had people reach out to me and say to me, I want to get into HR. And once I give them the day in the life of what I do, they're like, no, that job doesn't sound like fun to me. Because just because something sounds shiny and nice, it isn't for everyone. People ask me so many questions about HR and then they'll be like, nah, that's not for me. Some of my clients come to me wanting to get into HR and then they're like, oh no, actually, I think I'd be better in benefits or payroll or learning and development. So research and speaking to people is important. Understanding whatever industry you're trying to get into, what does it actually really look like? Not what you think it looks like as an outsider looking in, but what does it actually look like speaking to someone who's done it? So yeah, they're the steps I basically took to getting into human resources. I took a gateway job, which was recruitment. I used that job because I knew 2 years of recruitment experience was equivalent to a qualification in human resources. All you got to do is read job descriptions. Job description in HR used to say either like say 3 years experience in recruitment, admin, whatever, or it would say 3 years HR experience or a CIPD. HR experience can include the experience you get from a gateway job. And sometimes when it comes to job descriptions, that's how you read in between the lines. So I had 2 years comparable experience. Recruitment is comparable to human resources because recruitment is an element of human resources. HR is huge. It encompasses so many different things: benefits, compliance, employment, all the things. It encompasses everything, the governance, all the things. But it also incorporates recruitment as a part of human resources. So especially if you're a human resources generalist, you do loads of different things. So I just use that area to get into HR. That's why some people use payroll to get into HR. Some people use customer services. Like I said, there are a lot of different gateway jobs. If you want to be a HR admin, customer service, and a normal admin role or a PA role or an EA role are really good roles to get you in there. I didn't go into senior, like I said. I connected the dots using the job description, spoke to people, did immense research, and just went and booked myself some interviews. I didn't care how they turned out because the first one was already crap. I went and booked some more interviews. The fact that I got offered the next two, amazing. Great for me because I didn't have to do any more interviews. But I didn't go in thinking, oh, I'm definitely going to get this job. I went in thinking I'm going to do my best because I have done all my research. I know what I'm now talking about. I know how to connect the dots from my old job. Like I know what transferable skills I have. But when you talk about your transferable skills, because I didn't mention this, I don't want you to just say, these are the skills I've got. I need you to tell them how they're going to work for you in the new industry, because that's the part that people miss. People will say, oh, I have great communication skills. That's amazing. How is the communication going to help in the recruitment job? Because you're going to need to do sales. And if you're a good communicator, being able to sell requires you to be good at communicating. It requires you to be good at relationship building. I am great at relationship building, whether that's on the phone or in person. People tend to just like me. I am going to use that to be able to sell your services to your clients. That's how you're answering an interview. You're not just saying you're a good communicator. You're not talking about the old industry either. Oh, I'm a really good communicator. I'm great at communicating with the parents. The parents love me. That's all well and good. How is that helping in the new industry? I want you to think about your transferable skills, look at the job description and think about how it connects to the new industry and how can you talk about that at the interview and sell it in a way that makes them feel like, oh, okay, I never thought of it like that. Yes, that makes sense. You would be able to do that. Your communication is going to help me. You being good at admin is going to help me. You having attention to detail is going to help me. You, whatever it is, you having X is going to help them with Y and Z. Super important. Remember, you can always negotiate. So yeah, that's how I got into human resources. I hope that has helped someone who is either trying to get into HR or is thinking about getting into another industry, because it applies to any industry. And also for everyone who knows me and knows that it's been 17 years of me being in recruitment and HR, recently I was thinking about going and studying. Yes, me who's like, you don't need a qualification, but I don't need it. The flex is really that I just want to do it just because. It's kind of like I want to see what all the hype is about, because Listen, qualifications are amazing, but this is how I look at it. If you had a qualification from 5 or 10 years ago, how is that helping you now to get into an industry? Things change all the time. Let's look at AI, for instance. Sorry, I was about to end the episode and I just thought of this. Let's look at AI. Let's think about how AI has changed the landscape of jobs for all of us. Let's look at things like employment law. I'm in HR. The law and the legislation 10 years ago, 5 years ago, is not the same as the legislation now. It is forever changing. So if you studied 10 years ago and you learned all this way of doing stuff and now it is different, how is your qualification beneficial? It is beneficial at giving you the foundation. I believe that. It is the same way as getting the experience hands-on is beneficial of giving you the foundation. It is equivalent. Getting the qualification gives you all the foundation. Getting the hands-on experience gives you all the foundations that you will need. But the actual qualifications, the information within the qualification, guess what? The information will change. It will be adapted and it will be updated as the years go by. And I want anyone who's changing industry and doesn't want to go and get qualified to think about that. Even the people that are qualified are going to have to learn a lot of the things that you're going to have to learn because laws change, legislation changes, processes change, and how we do things in any industry changes. AI is proof of that in this current job market. But in previous job markets, all you've got to look at is how things have changed. The introduction of computers, the introduction of the internet, all these things change how you operate. Laws, the changing of government. When government changes, they change the laws, they change the rules. So something that you might have been doing last year in HR, you won't be doing this year because the government said you can't do it anymore. Look at 0-hour contracts. The government was like, we want to scrap 0-hour contracts. Day one rights. Like, there are so many things that have changed that if you studied them, you will think, and you're still thinking about how you studied them, you'll be like, oh no, but these are the rules. No, they're not, because they've changed. You have to keep up to date no matter what industry you're in. So qualifications are great. And for me, I want to do the qualification now. I don't even know why. I'm just like, oh, might be interesting to do a qualification. And someone messaged me on my Instagram, actually. It's one of my colleagues. She said to me, well, a colleague is in like a coaching colleague, someone I've met online. She was like to me, I've been working in L&D for 11 years and I just decided to go and get a qualification. Not because she needed it, just because it interested her. And I'm now at the point where it's like 17 years I've been doing this. I'm interested in going and get a qualification. Not because I've needed it, because I've been a director. I have worked all the way up to director level. There's nowhere else for me to go apart from like owning the company or being at C-suite in a massive company. Like, because I was a director in like a medium-sized company, being at C-suite in the like top level company, that's the only place to go. That's not where I want to be. I run a business. That isn't for me. However, it would be so cool to go and do a qualification. One of my friends is currently doing her master's in HR. She's already a HR director. She's already top of her game. She can't go anywhere else. She's the top of the company. She's the top of HR. However, she was like, I want to do my master's. Sometimes the knowledge is the knowledge. You just want to go and get extra knowledge. And that's how I feel now. I'm 17 years into my career. It might be cool to go and do a qualification. I don't know if I want to do the CIPD. I might. I don't know. But I do want to go and do something. So yeah, nothing wrong with qualifications. Just if you're trying to find the quickest route to get into a new industry, like I did, no experience, no qualifications. And in 2023, I did it again because I went into a role that I had never done before. And I went in at management level. And it is a job I'd never done before. And I used personal time to do my research. At that point, I didn't have a new baby and my oldest was away at uni. So it all was about to get ready to go away to uni. We were a year out. So there was more than enough time for me to do that. So it's all about knowing what season you're in, knowing what you're willing to do. If a qualification is what you want to do, go ahead. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to get into the industry. I wanted to get hands-on experience. And I'd already studied for teaching and for childcare. I already had qualifications. I didn't want to go back. Now, 17 years later, I do. So watch this space. Who knows? Maybe in the next 2 years. I'm not talking about right now because small baby, going back to work, settling her into nursery at some point, and working on my business. Yeah, it doesn't feel like that now's the time, but the time may come. So yeah, hope this has helped someone. Hope you've enjoyed the episode. As always, if you have, tap the like, write a review, leave me a comment, share it with someone else who might need it. I love doing this podcast. Let me know if there's anything else you want me to talk about. What topics? What can I help you guys with? Because it would be great to actually directly help you with something that you're struggling with. I will speak to you guys in the next episode. Bye. I hope this episode gave you exactly what you needed and motivated you to confidently take steps towards your next career move. If you enjoyed it, screenshot and share it on your socials, tag me on Instagram, and come join my community of amazing women working on leveling up their confidence and career. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.